Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Adams, the Health and Wellness Director at Refinery29. Welcome to Smart Sips. Today, we are here celebrating the launch of Tryst Network, a mission driven effort to improve the sexual health IQ of women and their partners using funny, provocative, empowering, and accurate online content. And joining us today, we have two very special guests, Sandra Pelletier and Jessica Biel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra Pelletier is the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of EvoFem Biosciences, Inc. Her career has been dedicated to empowering, educating, and enabling women and girls to make informed choices about their health. She is an author, international keynote speaker, and leader in life sciences and women's health advocacy. We also have Jessica Biel, who executive produced and starred in the Golden Globe nominated TV series The Sinner. She's also known for her performances in Hitchcock, The Illusionist, New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Biel is also an extensive philanthropist, working with women's and children's organizations and the environment. She currently serves as an ambassador for Women Care Global, advocating to remove stigma from women's reproductive health and sex education through the Tryst Network. So thanks everyone for joining us. And before we jump into the conversation, let's first check out a quick teaser from the launch of the Tryst Network.
So, is there anything you want to tell me about last night that you liked?
Hold on. Visual aid.
Okay.
Okay. Do you remember that one part where, where it was kind of like this, and you were sort of like
Tugging on your balls.
yes, that part I liked, and then you were also like doing
The wraparound squeeze
yes,
shaft grab.
so good. What's it called?
It's called the Van Damme.
Oh my God, like Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah,
He's the best.
I know.
So that was really great. Thank you. I'd love to know, first off, how did this partnership come about? Jessica, what made you want to come out and talk about sex?
Well, initially, this started for me when I wanted to start having a family. And I mean, obviously, we all know how it's done, but how it actually gets done and where your body is in its cycle, and if you're having trouble and if you're not having trouble. And it's a lot more complicated than it appears to be. And I think now even more so than ever, women are experiencing all types of issues when they're trying to decide if they want to have a family or not. So it it that conversation within my own family sparked this realization that I just really don't know so many things about my own body and my own cycle. And it was surprising and it was shocking, and I started talking to my friends about it, and they didn't know either. And I was speechless. I said, how is this possible? How is it that all these women I'm speaking to are educated and they're well traveled and they've all, have tons of higher education. How do we not know these things? It's crazy. So cut to Sandra and I meeting each other, and Sandra doing such amazing work, mainly overseas for women overseas. And we just started having this conversation. And initially, we were talking about how can we work together. And I loved what you were doing, but then we just started talking about sex education. Female reproductive health here in this country. And it just started to become so clear that it's just there's not enough information. There's not a place to go really to find information that you can trust. The way we feel about talking about this kind of stuff is like shameful and weird, and we can't even say the accurate words, the technical biological words, without like getting giddy and blushing. Like, it's crazy. So that's kind of how this partnership started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a huge unmet need. I mean, in the US right now, birth control was introduced in 1960, and there's so many options, but still there are 3.4 million unintended pregnancies every year in the United States when we have so much access. And so there's still a huge unmet need, a huge gap, and sexually transmitted infections. There really is a need, I think, for a sex positive resource that's body positive, that really has accurate information that people can go to. So we're excited about the Tryst Network.
So what are some of the big issues that we're not learning about in traditional sex ed that you wish more women knew?
Well, I guess one of the things is we talk a lot about one size doesn't fit all, and that there are so many options and choices, but a lot of women think that they're supposed to suffer and take it. Meaning, if they have side effects or they are on contraception that they're not happy with, and they just stay on it too long. And it really does change the way your body chemistry is and how you think and how you feel. So I think the biggest thing is one size doesn't fit all. But I think the second thing we care a lot about is pleasure. You know, it's never really talked about that women should naturally experience pleasure with sex. And of course, men are supposed to experience pleasure, but women are really the object of their pleasure, not the subject of studies with pleasure. And so we care a lot about suggesting that it shouldn't be dirty or shameful. Like this whole video that you saw, I mean, the whole thing on purpose was to really express yourself, to be able to feel confident about your body so you know what you like, you know what pleases you, and you should be able to talk about it and say it with confidence, not with shame.
Yeah, and in terms of sexual pleasure, how does one person begin this conversation with their partner? I think in the video it was obviously very funny and easy, but I think in real life it can feel really intimidating and scary, and you don't want to criticize your partner. So, how would you do that?
Well, interesting. This was just a clip of the video. This is like a little teaser. The full thing is a lot longer, and it's actually showing. Um, we're just highlighting in this particular relationship that the male partner is having a harder time communicating. As we can see, he's holding the fruit, the tomatoes, and he can't. And my character, whatever, does not have a problem at all. And you will, if you watch the full video, it's like she just goes for it, and like, I like it this way, and then you do that, and then this thing, and it's really kind of in your face and fun. And I think that's what we're attempting to do here is it doesn't have to be so serious, you guys, right? I mean, we all have body parts. They're not that, males have something, females have something else. That's it, right? There's really not that much else going on. And we want to take away the stigma of this stuff so you can go into it maybe using humor we always talk about, if you want to talk to your partner or communicate better with them about what you want or what you don't like or something, maybe start with a positive thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
Go in that way before you just drop the hammer with, yeah, and I don't like this, and this.
Well, and you know what else, though? People told us that they use these videos as conversation openers, like to literally say if it's awkward or you feel sensitive or uncomfortable, they say, oh, I just saw this fantastically funny video and I just want to show it to you. And just to open up the idea or the suggestion that it is okay to talk about what you want. And so we're hoping the video can be used in that way too, as a way to open up a conversation if it's, uncomfortable to do that otherwise.
All right, so humor and compliment sandwich, those are the two.
That's my go-to.
Who doesn't like compliments? That's right.
Compliment sandwich.
Yes.
I know, sorry, you only said one compliment, but I feel like you should end on one too.
I agree.
Good thinking.
The middle bits, that's the question, right? The bread ends, that's the compliment part.
Yes, exactly. So I know you both are mothers. Jessica, you have a 2-year-old son, and Sandra, you have a 10-year-old son. How does your work kind of bleed into the conversations you're already starting to have with your children?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's in my household, it's just constant in terms of, I mean, he's so little, so we're not really, getting into anything really in depth, but we're talking about our bodies like biologically accurate terms. We're not making goofy like little, woo woo terms. We're just, this is what you've got and this is what I've got. And also we talk a lot about respect. And that may sound a little crazy that that he's only 2, but I want him to know that if he doesn't, if I want to kiss him or hug him and he's like, no, I don't want that. I want him to know that I respect your body. And you know what? I hope that you'll respect my body too. And I'm not going to force you to do that. That's your body. And I mean, being moms of boys, which is another thing, it feels so important to not only start these young kids' lives with this understanding that like nobody gets to touch your body unless you're comfortable with it, even mommy. And also that, we have a real responsibility as humans and as men, as young men, to have a responsibility to understand how to, kind of manage the complexities of being a man and then also maybe having a relationship with a woman someday. Like it's very complex. And so for me and my family, and this is just my personal choice, and obviously everyone has their own personal choice to do it their own way, but this is what we're doing.
Well, and it's a responsibility, I think, as mothers. there's a sensitive balance, right? Between you love your child unconditionally, and I have only one child and it's a boy. My mother says that I had a boy, so I wouldn't write off men completely, which could be true. But the one interesting thing is that he's 10 going on 11, but he's really 10 going on 50. But because he lives with me alone, he knows a lot of information appropriately. But an example is he had a bunch of boys over a couple weeks ago, and he has a crush on a girl on television, but he won't admit that he has this crush. But he was showing these boys this girl on television, and one of his friends said, "Oh, wow, look at the way she's dressed. I bet she would go all the bases." And so I went in and said, "Hey, can I tell you something? How would you feel if I said, hey, guess what? Because Jack wears sports shirts every day, I bet he would go all the bases." And they looked at me and I said, "Do you know how much, when a woman's, how she's dressed, do you know how much that means about how many bases she'll go?" And I said, "Zero. It means zero. It has nothing to do with it." And my son said, "I told you my mother is a feminist. Don't talk about that," right? But I say that because it really matters. It matters that I don't just laugh it off and let it go and say they're little boys. No, these are little boys who are going to be men, and I want them to be good men. And I think that matters.
Yeah, that's so incredibly important.
Yeah.
And how did you both learn about sex? Did your parents give you guys the talk?
Honestly, I cannot remember having this conversation with my mom. It may have happened, but I mean, I come from a really cool family, like totally progressive. Nothing was, necessarily shameful, but I also went to a regular public school, and I do remember when it was my sex ed class, they separated the girls and the boys. And it was like the girls got to learn about cycle, basically what to do with a tampon. That was basically it. I really truly, and the boys it was like some mysterious thing and was weird. And I mean, immediately you're putting us at odds, and you're putting, like they don't know what happened and we don't want to tell them what happened. And oh my God, there's a tampon in the room. It was like this like weird stigma all over it. I mean, literally, that's my memory of sex ed, and that's terrible.
That is so crazy. I had the same experience where they divided the men and the women to learn about periods, and it's like everybody should learn about periods.
Yes, it shouldn't just be the responsibility of girls, by the way, not to get pregnant too. It's a lot of pressure when girls are the ones who are supposed to take care of it, and it should be boys and girls, men and women together. And so if we can start having those conversations sooner, it will normalize these kinds of conversations that are considered taboo and shouldn't be.
Definitely. So did you get the talk from your parents?
I did not. I grew up in a very small, the northernmost city in the US on the border of Canada, a very small, in my town, girls were really told they had two choices, who they were going to marry and how many kids they were going to have. And so I didn't get the talk, but my mom actually gave me Gloria Steinem's book, and it was like she was giving me porn. It was like, she's like, "Here's this book." And I still can't even believe she had the book, by the way. But, it was just the idea of learning that you should be in your personal power. But no, I didn't get the talk either. I mean, so, and I learned, all kinds of myths and all kinds of misinformation, crazy stuff that you didn't know whether to believe or not. So, yeah.
And do you think today with the internet that children are in a totally different place than we were when we were kids?
I mean, absolutely. There's just, as we know, you can just get anything and everything. You put one word in Google, one word, and maybe my friend's kid put the word inappropriate. By the way, spelled it right, and got like everything you can imagine, So now we're dealing with a different thing. Now you're dealing with this sort of wild west of access to
well, a lot of pornography
everything,
too, right?
I mean, you couldn't get your hands on a Playboy,
Right.
like
It's
back
true.
in the 80s when I was a kid, it was like you couldn't even get that.
But it perpetuates the situation, though, I think, because when you have access to things like pornography, even young girls and boys, when we talk about body positive, some of them don't know. They think like there is a vagina supposed to look a certain way, what's normal. And we really want people to understand that there isn't a normal, that everybody is different and they look different. And so that really matters too about people's confidence, to let them understand that all your bodies are individual and unique, but that you should examine yourself. One of the videos is awesome where it talks about looking at your vagina, because how are you going to know if something's different or off if you've never examined yourself? And it's a really important thing. It might sound like Captain Obvious, but not a lot of women we talk to have really done an exam of their own vagina. As crazy as that sounds, examining your vagina, but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you could both go back and tell your prepubescent selves one thing about sex, what would that be?
This question.
I know.
There's so many things to tell.
I know. I know. Okay, so I would, and I said this at Makers, but I didn't finish it, which I regretted. You ever do that? Wish you would have said something different, and then you just like beat yourself up. So I said that sex shouldn't be a burden and a chore. But what I really meant is that a lot of women have pain with intercourse and they have vaginal dryness. And maybe not women that aren't just old like me, that aren't I don't feel old, but I'm getting in menopause. And so the idea that even young women have pain with sex and that you just are supposed to take it to maintain your relationship. And so I guess I would have said to myself that you really have to be mindful about your own body and that having any kind of pain isn't normal and that you shouldn't just suck it up to maintain your partner and please your partner, that your pleasure matters. I would oversay that to myself, that your pleasure matters. So that would be, I don't know if I would listen. I hope that I would, but I would say it. I would definitely say it.
I think my answer would go kind of hand in hand with yours. That I mean, I remember it just being a young woman and trying to decide, is this the right time for me to have sex or not, or with who, and how many, and is it okay? And like, there's all this pressure and a lot of thought. I put a lot of thought into it. Not to say that you shouldn't, because that's something, that you want to, at least my feeling was something I wanted to share with not just everybody, right? But like we keep talking about, everyone's choice is your own personal choice. But I feel like I would tell myself, it's really, really, really important to say no, and really important to like stand and feel confident about that choice. But it's also really important and okay to say yes. This idea of consent, we want to talk about, like, what does this mean to say no? We know that, but what does it mean to say yes? And it's really okay to choose your pleasure over, like you said, a burdensome kind of experience. And I just remember having a lot of turmoil over, was I going to be judged, and is it okay, and how do you walk this line of maintaining your dignity and your respect, but also saying, I'm a sexual human being and we all are this way ever since we're very young. And what's wrong with that? So I feel like I would probably say that to myself.
Well, that is an amazing note to end on. I just want to thank our panelists and everyone watching at home for joining us today. Check out our comments below for more details on the Tryst Network and go to their website to watch the series. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.